Right, so I'm going to run through the answers for these tasks. This one over here, we're being asked to draw 2 repeat units of the polymer formed from the following monomers. So these are all monomers, they're all going to be unsaturated, and when they form polymer, they're going to become saturated. So the key thing to drawing a repeat unit is identifying the 2 carbons that were initially in the double bond that lose that double bond. So in this case, that is these 2 carbons. So we lose the double bond, we draw the other groups in exactly the way they are. So that carbon there was bonded to 2 hydrogens, this carbon here was bonded to a CH3 and a hydrogen. So this is technically 1 repeat unit. To draw another one, all we're going to do is just draw the same thing right next to it. So again, 2 carbons with the same groups coming off of it. So this carbon here had 2 hydrogens, this carbon here had a methyl and a hydrogen. And again, you need to have those extending bonds and ideally square brackets around that. So here we have 1 repeat unit and here is the other repeat unit, so that's our 2 repeat units here. Right, so this over here is the structural formula. So the first thing I would do is draw it out as the displayed formula. So double bond is the main thing, so that's this here. This carbon's got 2 hydrogens coming off of it. This carbon here has a hydrogen and then this ethyl group. So that's CH2, CH3 and a hydrogen here. So now all we do is do the repeat unit for this. So that becomes, so those 2 carbons lose the double bond. It has the CH2, CH3 there. Hydrogen here and hydrogens down here. So that's 1 repeat unit, and all we do is the next one is exactly the same to show the second repeat unit, like so. And again, you need those extending bonds and square brackets. Right, over here we've got the skeletal formula. Now the best way to make sure you don't get this wrong is just to convert it into the displayed formula. So if I just quickly do the displayed formula for it down here, so that's the double bond. This carbon has a methyl group coming off and it has a hydrogen, so this is technically a hydrogen here. This carbon here has a methyl and an ethyl group coming off, so a CH3 here and an ethyl, which is CH2, CH3, or if you did C2H5, that's absolutely fine as well. So again, to draw the repeat unit for this, the 2 carbons in the middle lose their double bond and the groups are attached in exactly the same way. So this carbon here was attached to a methyl and an ethyl, so it still needs to be attached to an ethyl and a methyl. This one needs to be attached to a methyl and a hydrogen. So that's 1 repeat unit. To draw 2, just the same thing, repeat it. Like so. Okay, and again, extending bonds, square brackets. Right, this one here, I've drawn it in a different orientation. So the first thing I'm going to do is have this double bond going across. So again, I'm just going to convert it into displayed. So this carbon here, I'm going to say it's this carbon here. So that just has 2 hydrogens coming off. So that's that. This carbon here has a methyl coming off here. And then it has all of this. So I'm just going to leave all of this exactly that. In the skeletal form, if you want to, you can do the displayed formula. Actually, I'll do it as a displayed formula. So we've got a CH2 coming off, and then I'm not going to show all the bonds. Then we've got a CH with an OH and a methyl group. Okay, so to do the repeat unit of this, I may struggle to fit this in. I might just end up doing 1. So we've got 2 hydrogens here. Extending bond, square bracket, methyl group down here, and then all of that coming up there. So I'm just going to go upwards. CH2, CH, we've got an OH coming off of that, and a methyl. like so. Okay, and you need to draw the other repeat unit, so it's just the same thing again. And then that large group coming off here. Like so. And again, extending bond and square bracket. Okay, right, the next task was to draw one repeat unit of the following polymers. So over here we've got multiple repeat units, each of them has a different amount. So all we're going to do is go through and identify one repeat unit and draw it out. So for this one over here, so a repeat unit must have the 2 carbons in it. So we look over here, these 2 carbons belong to one repeat unit, these 2 belong to another, so that's technically one repeat unit, that's another, and that's another. As you can see, it's just the same thing being repeated. Okay, so the repeat unit for this one is just this, like so. And same thing for this one, 2 carbons in one repeat unit, so we just find the repeating pattern, and hopefully you can see this is one, this is another, this is another, and this is another. So one repeat unit is this. So there's going to be a double bond there. And like so. So that is one repeat unit. This one down here, hopefully you can see that this is basically just a straight chain. So technically we can have, remember it's got to have 2 carbons in it, so I'm just going to pick this carbon and this carbon. So that's one repeat unit. This here is another repeat unit, this here is another repeat unit, and so on. So this one's quite simple in the sense that one repeat unit is just 2 carbons, and each carbon has 2 hydrogens coming off of it. So it's just going to be essentially from ethene. So this is just polyethene, like so. Okay, and the last task was to draw the monomers that make the following polymers. So again, what you need to do is identify a repeat unit and then go back and draw the alkene that made that repeat unit. So this one over here, again, remember just 2 carbons in the backbone that belong to one repeat unit, like so. So that's one repeat unit. And if I were to draw the monomer that made that, I'm just going to do it up here. So I just add all the groups in. So this carbon here has an OH and a H. This carbon here has a H and a Cl. And all I do is I return that double bond, because the monomer, whenever you're being asked to draw the monomer, it's got to have the double bond back in it. This one here, again, find a repeat unit. So let's say that this here is one repeat unit. So we've got 1 carbon there, 1 carbon there. So that carbon there has 2 hydrogens. And this carbon here has a hydrogen and a methyl group. Like so. Okay, if you did that in the skeletal form, so if you did that, that's also correct. That is the same thing as the skeletal form. This one here, hopefully you can see that this again is just polyethene. So the monomer that makes this is just ethene. This one here, again, identify from the backbone, identify 2 carbons. I'm going to go for this carbon here and this carbon here. So this here is one repeat unit. And as you can see, that's just repeating across. So the monomer for this, I'm going to keep it in the skeletal form. So you've got, you know, a double bond forming back in there. Okay. And that is then just attached the same way. So you've got this cyclo ring coming off. So that's that carbon there. And then this carbon here is bonded to a methyl group. So I've got to draw a methyl group coming off there. Okay, so that is the alkene that makes this. If you want to draw it in the correct orientation, you can draw it like this. I'm not going to be able to fit this in.